Yeah, they got calling me ugly because I can report you.
Yeah, I just got erased. Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay.
All right. All right, good morning, everybody. All right. I'm getting there. I'm still like my mouth is really dry, my throat's really dry, so I just got to chug water. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, guys. Listen, I told first period this that I've had some kids, some seniors that have come in and have said, we don't have very many people here today, so right, we're just having a free day, right? No. I'd like to think you guys probably know me better than that anyway, all right? But the reality is that I feel like I don't know what's coming. I feel like tomorrow may be a full day, it might be a delay. I feel like it's not going to be a cancel. I'm pretty certain about that. Monday, I don't know. Monday, I think is going to be really bad. And it may not be the snow. It may just be the fact that it's going to be, moose weather. I think it's the cold though. It's like 14 below, and that's like the high or something. I don't know. It's crazy stuff. So,
it's like 14 below.
Yeah. So then you throw in some wind chill there. It's going to be pretty bad. So that I think in 2 hours. I don't think an extra 2 hours. Extra 2 hours is going to like warm things up. So I guess the moral of my story is, folks, is that if we're in school, I feel like we need to be doing some stuff because I don't know what's coming. This is only mid-January. We still got another 2 months of this, so we got to kind of keep pushing through on some stuff. So that's how we're going to go forward with today. Now, yesterday was a little bit of a nutty time period with the delay, but we had been talking about political parties, and there's no doubt that when we talk about things that influence how a voter makes a decision, political parties might be right up there at the top of the list. I'm about a third of the way through your political ID interviews, and I've got a lot of those that feature the person that was interviewed talking in some way about political party. That it was absolutely influential in votes that they had cast in the past. And I know that some of you, how many of you worked November? Were you guys a judge? So did you have anybody come up and just say, I want to vote a straight ticket? Or a lot of people, right? Right? Yeah. So I worked as a judge. I worked elections for many, many years. I always worked as a judge. It was always the same thing. It was a lot of older guys. I don't know why, but and I would sit there and I'd try to explain how the machine works, and they'd say, I don't want to hear it. How do I vote a straight ticket? Show me how to do that. So, right there, that tells you just how important political parties can be. Today, we're going to talk about our next. I'd say we're going to cover 3 political parties, interest groups, and the media. So today, and then, a little bit tomorrow, we're going to talk a little bit about interest groups. So we are going to have a little bit in the way of notes today. We don't take a lot of notes in here, but these are more guided notes. So I'm giving you the questions. You just kind of got to answer them as we go. Some of this is going to ask you to give your thoughts on this and your reactions to things. So please note that, and I'll try to make sure that you see those when we go. You guys have enough light by the end? I don't want you to fall asleep either. Yes, sir. Hey, the political party, by the way, just got to ask you questions. The political party assignment, right? Political party assignment that we were working on starting on, what's today? Thursday. We started out on Tuesday. That needs to be shared with me at some point today. I've had some students that have come to me and said, hey, we've got people that were in our group that haven't done their part, haven't filled in their political party. Go ahead and share it with me. Make sure that you have put down what you did so that you get credit for it. I'm not going to hold somebody hostage for people just not doing their work. I'll give those folks a 0, give you guys a grade. That's how we'll roll. I want to remind you that the weekly response for week number 2 is tied to that political party assignment. Don't forget about that. I would probably think about that maybe today if you have a chance, so it's fresh in your mind. All right, but don't forget about that. And as long as I can have those today and we're solid, if you already shared it with me, you don't have to reshare it with me. That's the great thing about Google Docs is that it'll automatically update as people add stuff to it. So don't forget to do that today if you haven't done so already. All right, so looking through the questions here, I'm kind of walking all over the place. I do want to point out one thing real quick. As I was looking over this morning and getting real honest with myself on the time that we had to cover some of this, I've decided that I am going to actually omit questions 7 and 8. I've got a real reason for doing that. We're going to be talking about campaigning and elections, and we're going to be doing that a little bit later on. That's probably a better place for me to include those 2 questions. So you can kind of draw an X through those or a line through those, whatever you want to do. But all of the others we're going to cover either today or tomorrow. Okay. Now, the first question you may notice is just simply to make sure that you understand what exactly an interest group is. It seems like, every year I teach this, I have students that struggle in a big way with telling the difference between an interest group and a political party. So that's kind of how we're going to get started. And I want you to get started with this scenario here, all right? So you can put your pencils down for a second. I'm going to have you guys discuss this at your tables. I want you to pick a spokesperson who can talk for your table here, give us your insights. And what I'm going to have you guys focusing in on are the questions within the yellow box here, okay? But the scenario says that the Indiana State Legislature is entertaining the idea, in fact, they've gone so far as to pass a law that changes the driving age when you get your driver's license from 16 to 21. And for those of you thinking that Mr. Klein just made up some random scenario, I absolutely did not. All right, the state legislature has entertained the idea, legitimately, of raising the age at which you can get your driver's license. So in this case, in this scenario, they've done it. And now, just like any other piece of legislation, it goes to the Congress, or in this case, the state legislature, or I'm sorry, the governor, Governor Holcomb. By the way, Eric Holcomb is your governor, in case you didn't know that. And he has to make a decision here. Does he sign the bill? And if he does, then the bill becomes law. Or does he veto the bill? Meaning that the bill is pretty dead. All right. So what he wants to do is get input from Hoosiers before he decides what to do. So consider this. And what I want you to think about is, number one, who does this decision stand to affect? Affect. There we go. All right. We were talking about this yesterday. All right, so who does this decision affect? And think about this, okay? Initially you think, okay, well, 16-year-olds. It's a lot more than that. All right, think about who this would affect. How does it affect them? I'd like for your table. What would you say to this law? You have a different perspective here than maybe I do. And then the last one is the big question. If your table, whatever consensus your table comes up with, what can you personally do to convince the governor to go along with your point of view on this, right? So I want you to take the next 5 minutes. Now your tables, I'd like for you to come up with your decisions here, your responses, all right? And pick somebody who can speak for the group, and then we'll talk about that. Yeah, you run if you want to jump the girls. That's fine. They can. Absolutely. Appreciate that.
He doesn't have to see it. He's less sensitive to this. He doesn't have to work or school.
grandfathered in. We'll be talking in the next unit about something like ex post facto law, which is where they make something illegal. Punish you for doing anything illegal. Like you never say, okay, sorry, you want to
Yeah, that's like the same.
Yeah.
So then you're just got their car. They're gonna be like, this is a great idea, let me try it. I mean, these are opposites. Way less. Less. 16-year-olds can get jobs.
Yeah.
So I'm a parent and I have to drive my child to their jobs. Get down on your house.
That's how you do it.
You don't have to. I can say,
I have my. Actually, his kids got no out of high school.
That's all.
It's not gonna work. Unless you call it, you're an hour away.
Okay, another minute or two here. We'll get you rolling here.
Hey, Mr. Klein,
Yes.
do you happen to know the reasons that they brought this up at all in Jim?
Well, the first thing I would tell you, and I almost hesitate to tell you this, because I don't want to like bias your discussion here, but the discussions that they've had have been to move from 16 to 18, which
I knew about.
could be a little bit of a game. I mean, it's
Yeah.
different from 18 than it is from 16 to 21. Honestly, it comes down to this feeling like 16-year-olds are just not ready to handle this responsibility. That we've seen a real spike in car accidents.
I mean, you turned out okay.
But I mean, let's be honest. Exception. Norm. Okay? What's really wild is that my when I was taking driver's ed, mine was the last year where if you got a certain grade in driver's ed, you didn't have to take a driving test. You had to take the paper exam, but you at no point had to take the practical driving.
See, I just.
Which seems, nuts.
I didn't have to take the paper exam.
Yeah, you did. You said no, it's paper exam because you did it online.
Well, that's what
I did my online test and I never.
you didn't have to take. You didn't have to do it when you went to the B&P.
No, I don't know.
Yeah, I used to. I used to take
Exactly.
you did it. So I had to get the
Well, yeah. Okay. Let's circle the wagons back up again. Listen, please. Let's circle the wagons back up and talk about what you and your group decided here. Our first question was, who does this decision affect? Let's kind of go like one at a time. We can kind of just throw them out there. But what's the first and obvious group of people that this affects? Yeah. Well, let's call it teens. Slash kids, slash whatever you say, or parents.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
College student.
No, I don't know that it has to be teens, because this was a really good point right up in first period. By the time you're 21, I mean, some folks are graduating, and are we going to be like, congrats, now you get to drive. So I think we could put college students as their own separate
Yeah. Okay, right. Yeah, but it's-
Yeah, you have a bachelor's degree, but. All right. Any other groups? Riley, we got. Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Dang it, Riley.
Kristen, do you have another one? Yeah. Any others? I think there's at least one other big one. I was wondering about like just school in general. You know, I think that would be effective here for sure. I forgot how to spell school, which is ironic. When I brought this up in first period, and then somebody said, "Well, would you also say like sports coaches?" I think it could possibly affect them as well. That kind of fits into school. Anything else? Anything else that we don't have on the list here? It's a pretty good list. It's a pretty good list. So, all right. So listen. In what ways are these groups of people affected by this law? Again, we'll just do like hands up. Yeah, we got you.
Well, teens when they turn 16, you have to send them home.
Sure.
And if they don't have a transportation, they're no job.
So the job thing encompasses several different groups here, right? It hurts possible employers who might want to hire, teens, the parents who might have to drive you. That's going to be a big part of it, Riley. Yeah, and the nice thing is that at least if they're in high school, at least we have busing. But not always. I mean, you guys are aware, like some private schools don't have any form of busing. A lot of charter schools have zero form of busing. So they rely on you getting yourself there in one way, shape, or form. So this could hurt some of those schools. Imagine if you have a school that's a charter school or a private school that takes a significant cut in enrollment simply because kids can't get to school. Their parents just cannot drive. So that's something that is, I think, maybe even a bigger issue than what we initially thought. Any other? One more way that these groups are affected. Yeah.
Like parents, because older siblings will pick up their kids or their younger siblings at school because their parents are working.
Yeah.
And if they can't drive,
Sure.
then.
Absolutely. And somebody had mentioned sports coaches. That would it be possible to have many practices outside of that right after school time frame? That might be tough to get back to school. So yeah, so this could be a really impactful law. Consensus at the tables. Your tables supports, oppose the law. So we got what, opposed here? What about the back? Opposed? Opposed? What do you guys think? Yeah, right. Now I was talking to the table up here and asked, sort of the rationale behind this. When the state legislature actually, I said this is not just a random scenario. They actually talked about this. What they talked about was moving it from 16 to 18. Now, does that change your thought process, or do you still think that it's too cumbersome? Okay.
I think it still affects teens and employers because you're allowed to work at 16. So because when you got to get a job, it's going to be the parents' job to get that job. A lot harder, especially.
Brad, what do you got?
I feel like you should have some responsibility. Thank you.
I mean, that's the thing. As far as what the rationale was when they started to talk about this, as I told that table, it really was responsibility. It really was maturity. I mean, there's no denying the fact that we have seen over the last decade a spike. And it's not just a small spike. We're talking a sharp spike in the amount of early driving car accidents. 16 to 17 years old. So, well, look, I mean, it happens, right? But and it's always happened. It's not like it's never happened before. But the rate at which it's happening is getting significantly higher. I tend to think that maybe that's because of the changes in some of the ways in which driver's ed is done. I hate to kind of keep going back to when I was a kid. But when I was a kid, like, you had to take driver's ed. You really didn't have a choice, but every school offered it. And it used to be that schools offered it as a class. You took the class while you were at school. So you didn't necessarily pay much extra for it. It wasn't extra time. You just did it while you're at school. We've radically changed all of that. I don't know that we've done it for the better. But maybe there's something to be said for kids. That's a big responsibility that maybe people aren't taking seriously enough. Add a couple of years on there, then maybe they're ready. Think about it. At 16, we're not comfortable with you voting. You have less lives at risk when you go to cast a vote theoretically than you do when you get behind the wheel of the car. So it's interesting to note here. Now, what did you guys come up with for our last question? Okay, you all said opposed. Mike, what can you, on a personal level, what can you do to get Governor Holcomb to listen to what you have to say? What do you got?
Well, I said that if you the whole thing is going to raise the top rates within the United States, and it's teenagers, you start out at 16, getting a job, and that kind of sets you up for getting into the working life. So if you can't do that at 16, start getting into it.
So yes, you're bringing up all these great points. What are you, Jada Biddle, going to do to get him to listen to those points? They're great, but how does it get from Jada Biddle to Governor Holcomb?
Well, because if he can get to 21, then it'll be on him that the job rates.
Absolutely. You're making great points. What I'm saying is, how does it go from Jada with these incredible great points to Eric Holcomb?
Well, I'll mean.
All right, Veronica, what do you got?
Probably, I would say maybe get a petition out.
Okay.
Or protest maybe.
All right, petition, protest. Tristan, what are you going to say? Petition, yeah. The idea, but here's the thing, guys, and listen, this is why I wanted to start everything with this scenario, is that we have to consider this very real fact. Jada Biddle, by herself, goes to the governor's office, which, by the way, you can, at any point, walk into the State House, and you can go to the governor's office, or at least, the secretary sitting in front. Okay? But if Jada Biddle by herself goes in there and says, "Hi, I'm Jada Biddle. I would like to tell Governor Holcomb not to sign this law." What do you think the odds are that Governor Holcomb is going to step out and be like, "Jada, come on back. Let's talk, just you and me"? Oh, okay.
He's my dad.
Yeah. No, but it's nothing against Jada. What I'm saying is that politicians at the state level, think about this, politicians at the national level, are not probably going to be super likely to sit down and to take real serious, you on your own, giving a point or expressing an opinion or giving some sort of insight on an issue or interest that you have. However, if Jada shows up with the support of a large group behind her, that's a different story. All right? That's what interest groups are all about. All right? So what is the purpose? The first question there simply asks you, what is the purpose of an interest group? And this is really where we get into what is the difference between an interest group and a political party. It really is just as simple as, my mouse is not one play. There we go. That an interest group does not run somebody for office. Yeah, you're not going to go into the voting booth and vote for the NRA party. It's not a political party. The NRA, and I use them as our example because honestly, they're one of the most recognized interest groups in the United States. The NRA is not going to run somebody for office. They are an interest group. Their job, it's not to get people elected. Their job is to represent the interests of, in their case, gun rights advocates. And, the idea is that if you have one person going to Congress and saying, we think that you should support this type of gun legislation, maybe they get ignored. But if you have the work of an entire group, then you become really, really difficult to ignore. All right, so I tend to think that interest groups have just as much of an impact as political parties when we talk about impacting how somebody votes. Because not everybody wants to say I'm a Democrat. Not everybody wants to say I'm a Republican. But just about every single American has something that they are interested in, that they feel strongly about. And there is undoubtedly an interest group out there that could serve your interest. Okay, there are thousands upon thousands of interest groups. I've got two examples of them. The NRA, I think the ACLU is also reasonably well known. All right. Think about the fact that these interest groups are not going to dominate the news like a Democrat Republican might. All right. They've got to use other tactics to grab your attention. And one of the biggest ways that they do so is through advertising. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a quick little commercial. One is sponsored by the NRA. One is sponsored by the ACLU. And what I'd like for you to do while you watch these, two things. Number one, what are the strategies that they use in these 30-second ads to try to get you to share their interest? And secondly, what do you notice these ads having in common? All right, that's actually one of the questions that I want you to note. Even though these are two very different interest groups, I think you could go so far as to say they might be even rivals. Okay, but I think you may find that they use a lot of the same kind of tactics. So the message is different, the strategy is the same. So what are those similarities that you notice, right? So let's take a look at this real quick. We'll start with the NRA, then we'll go to the ACLU.
Never fight if you can avoid it. But when you must fight, don't lose. And when nothing less than freedom is at stake, you fight. We're millions of people just like you. We're the longest standing civil rights organization in the U.S. Proud defenders of history's patriots. Protectors of the Second Amendment. Advocating the right to keep and bear arms. Advancing the shooting sports. Championing gun safety, education, and training. Creating a vital legacy by answering freedom's call. And we're growing stronger every day. We are the NRA, and the NRA is you.
All right, so right off the bat, what are some of the strategies that you noticed that they used, other than just firing as many words at you as they possibly could on the screen? What are some of the other strategies that you noticed that they used to pump you up, to get you interested in their interests? What'd you notice? Oh, Jaden? Yeah, the music is part of it. There is no doubt about it. It's there to get you hyped. Braden, what'd you notice? Okay, yeah. And what tools did they use to hit that patriot?
They showed,
Other than using the word patriot.
They showed like the Liberty Bell, like pictures of like the president.
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, I don't know if you noticed, but a lot of when they were flashing those words at you, a lot of times they were up against the backdrop of something that we tied to the United States, the Liberty Bell. At one point there were like the columns of the Jefferson Memorial. What else? What else did you notice? What? The voice is there. Yes. All right. I don't know if you guys noticed, there was one part I thought was really interesting. They identified themselves as the longest running civil rights organization in the United States. I thought that was interesting. But all right, so keep those tactics kind of in mind. We're going to watch the ACLU ad here. It's not exactly the same, but what similarities do you notice between the two?
America has a history of commitment to liberty and justice, but along the way it has made some terrible mistakes During World War II, tens of thousands of American citizens were detained indefinitely. During the McCarthy era, the Internal Security Act authorized detention of people based on suspicion they might be enemies. We thought we learned from these mistakes, but here we admit a wrong. With the Civil Liberties Act, the U.S. apologized to Japanese Americans. The McCarthy-era detention law was also repealed. But did we really learn from these mistakes? A new bill in Congress suggests we didn't. It would allow the government to hold people indefinitely without any real ability to challenge their detention. America made this mistake before. Don't let Congress get it wrong again. Contact your representatives. Demand they reject these detention provisions. Anything less would be un-American.
Okay, so a little bit different there in that we had, it wasn't like join the ACLU as much, but they were using the platform of advertising to bring up a point here. Any similarities that you noticed in the tactics that they are using to get their message across? Yeah, Brady? So we got the music there. May not be quite the hype music, but did it set the tone they wanted? Kind of like a serious, let's get serious kind of tone here. Yeah, and patriotism. That was something that Brayton brought up. What did some of you notice as far as some of the imagery that's meant to tie in patriotism?
American.
A lot of flags, right? A lot of flags. Congress flashed up there at one point. Washington Memorial, right there at the very end. That the tall tower there. So right there, right? I mean, that's an obvious similarity. You had those images being used in both style ads. I thought that was really interesting there. Any other similarities that you felt like you noticed? Commercials are no fun if they've got it on those. All right, you got to have the voice there. So this is a key, I think, for us to understand here, especially as we talk about effectiveness. And I'll tell you, let me run through this question, and then we'll stop here for today. Interest groups have to get smart. Like I said, they don't have the free press like Democrats and Republicans might do. All right, they have to find other ways in which to be effective. And I'll jump right down here to money first, since we were talking about advertising. All right, an interest group, in order for it to be effective, it's going to have access to lots of money. So, I mean, there's a reason why the NRA would run an ad where they're trying to convince you to join them. I mean, they need your money if they don't need anything else. In fact, we've seen over the last year, NRA membership has actually dropped significantly. So yeah, they're going to be running ads to try to convince you to join. They need that money to pay their staff. They need that money so if they would like, they can make donations to politicians who are running. They need that money to run ads. But you guys would probably be shocked to find out how much it costs. You get 30 seconds of ad time. And if you run that during the day, it's cheaper. You run that during prime time. I mean, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars for 30 seconds of ad time. So you got to have money. If you want to be taken seriously, we got to include the size of your group. This kind of goes back to where I kind of felt like I was picking on Jada there a little bit. Sorry, but if your group is super small, just doesn't have a whole lot of people in it, then politicians may be less likely to give you as much respect as they would a giant, maybe nationwide organization. That kind of ties into membership here. You want to have a big, impactful voice. That's the way to guarantee that people will listen to you. And I think, this organization idea here, you want to be respected again. That's part of it. All right, are they going to respect you if you show up and you look like you're just this random group of ragtags that really doesn't have a cohesive thought, doesn't have a cohesive idea here, doesn't have a clear leader? You want to have a strong organization to your interest group. Okay, the more of all of these that you have, the more effective you will likely be as an interest group. So note, on that question, I did ask for you, on an individual basis, to decide which of these you think is the most important, and why do you think? Okay? So when we come back in here tomorrow, even if we have a delay, We'll get to question 5 and 6. Okay, question 5 and 6. And then on the back, and I did want to go ahead and maybe get you thinking about this now. On the back is a table, and that's going to be an individual. You will turn this in as a grade. That table on the back is individual. I'd like for you to have a chance to, maybe look into an interest group that appeals to you personally. And I'm going to put a list up here of the different groups that you can choose from. If you wanted to go ahead and get a head start on this, then that wouldn't be the worst idea here. Here is our list in the blue box. Okay, the idea here is that you pick one, and I don't care which one you choose. All right, and then you're just going to answer, 3 or 4 questions about that group. You're going to need to go to their group's website. Quick Google search will take you there. Answer a couple questions here, just to get some information about an actual interest group. Like I said, you will turn this in by the end of class tomorrow. So, hopefully, I think there's a really good chance of it. We have a full day. So we'll come in, take 10 minutes, finish up question 5 and 6, then I'll give you the rest of the time to look into that. But, I know we got some folks in here that like to work ahead. So there you go. I'll give you some work. Don't forget your weekly response. I had some folks who were taking 0s out of 10 on that because they didn't do it. Okay, don't forget about your weekly response. That's up there on the website. Click on the link, give the response. Forget about it. Any questions for me? All right, that's it. That's it. That's all.
Mr. Klein,
Yes.
so we pick one and do as a group, right?
No, for that back page, that table on the back, this is just you, Audrey.
Silly kid.
Just you. So you may find one that you find more interesting than what Lydia was. How early is Brittany?
It only took like 6 years.
Received it, but I got it.
Everybody's thinking.
Brittany, I
Are you really gonna tip it? No. Really?
They're in your backyard.
Is it really?
I know it was.
I gotta
I
tell
love, the one I love is it's like the dough, handmade dough. And they put chicken or beef and then put it in the frying pan.
Well, don't love hearing that. Hi. Yes, thank you. That's all right. I figured you probably just forgot. Now I can actually close my door.
Why not?
Let me get on this. Okay, I'll do some more class, so I'll finish it up. Because I sent a thing to the administrator, so he unlocked the website or whatever.
That's weird. I wonder.
I was like,
Have you tried to use the website before that?
No, it wasn't your class website. It was the one that's like the link. And I was like,
The link for the document?
I was like, so I sent him an email. He goes, that really shouldn't be blocked all of them. I was like, yeah, I was like, what? People just hop on here and you guys block it because too many people hop on there and read it for fun. I doubt too many students are doing that.
I got open.
I do the weekly.
The first one did.
As the second one, I like that training.
Oh, it's due Friday, Christian.
They're the ones that are just on the website.
Yes.
Is that from this class?
Is that?
Yeah.
That was a while ago, but that was like what, Tuesday?
So my thing is
Right.
setting right there.
Yeah, that was last week.
Yeah. Well, that was last week. Yeah, 'cause that was the ideologist test.
I slept through that.
Yeah. Did you do your interview? Turn it in? Okay, so that means no.
Actually, yeah, I didn't do that. He just gave me a paper for that too. What was it, Monday?
Yeah, it's Thursday.
Well, let's be clear here, you know, you were here physically when the paper was handed
I know,
out.
he just handed me one too Monday.
Well, I handed you two when everybody else got it. You just were sound asleep.
I'm just saying, he gave me another one Monday.
I did.
Yeah. You had till Wednesday to get it done.
Yeah, that was
Don't forget about your current events.
yeah.
How many minutes
Whenever
did you get
he's
this far?
does this happen? About the current events for the weekly things.
No.
A few minutes to make it this far.
I'll tell you.
Genuinely.
Christian, I know this is a personal question, but what's your GPA?
GPA, honestly.
Do you even have one
Last
set?
time I looked at it, it was like a 1.4.
It was declined.
Down.
Huh? No, I'm not gonna babysit.
Yeah.
Hi, Sean. What are you watching on that? I'm so mad. I literally just raised my grade in algebra to a C, and now I have an F.
Yeah, my final, I had always a B and I had a C plus and algebra 2. Got up to a B, now it's a C base. Just a C.
Yeah.
Okay, you never get my final here.
Yeah, I do. Wait, yeah, I have to have
What's your
Right? Excuse you. That was my am I wrestling again? Oh my god, we got all of them before. Bye. But
She shut it. I didn't want it to shut. That's why you're slow.
How do you spell nickel?
Nickle. With an E. You're no longer, nope, you're banned from the cafe.
I know, that's where I said it one extra.
Yeah, it doesn't.
See, I found out.
So you saw it as a child.
Yeah, and I didn't know. And my own friends and the government might get one shot, so I was like, Kelly, look. I'm proud. Of someone saying your face is really good.
I'm not that level back.
I was oh no, I should put on the quote of the day. I really am sad that I wouldn't even erase the whole song and put lyrics from the Greatest Showman, but I think I would have.
You see her?
Let's go, people.
You're not in a big rush to get food
You did a big time rush.
Because I actually was in Big Time Rush.
That's not.
After my short stint on iCarly,
I've been saying that all day. Mr. Khan, you're gonna be there. Just keep on that.
Okay. Is there a reason?
Yeah.
What are you about to do? Are you about to get grounded? I walked out today without my keys, my wallet, and my pocket constitution.
Oh, you want it? It started without first. Oh, yeah. So if you were that's a nice one.
Are you getting tickets for us? No, I promise, like, I don't like how. I don't need it. Yeah, come to college. Come to our college. Not again. Stop it. Get back.
They can pull the whole thing. Who did I do that to? Is that you? This is the first time all day this room hasn't smelled like bologna. I don't mind a good bologna sandwich, but I don't want to sit there and just sniff.
Maybe.
What do you want? I don't even know what day it is. Like, are you have you been here?
Monday through Wednesday.
Switch it is.
Oh,
I'll take it. The documents that you need.
wait. I already did this. Yeah, I already did Our whole group should do Friday.
You hear it? Yeah, it probably. Then the paper I have for it. Hey, I'm going to take attendance real fast, and then we're going to finish up those questions from yesterday. So get those out, please. You hear this? Yes. I don't remember if I think summarized the whatever, whatever.
Is this summarized or whatever? It's all talking
Nice. I forgot my pocket constitution at home today. You understand how big a deal it is? I also forgot my phone. I'm most concerned about
Driver's license.
No, I know exactly where it's at. I just.